This is ChestertonRadio.com.
Now, Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present Suspense.
Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Mr. Paul Henry as star of The Angel of Death, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Mr. Paul Henry in a remarkable tale of Suspense.
December 31st, New Year's Eve. I shall identify myself as John Forsyth, my true name, as I have no reason to fear its being known or to assume one of a different character. My early life has no place in this narrative, save only to point out with the utmost objectivity that I've always been possessed since my tenderest youth of extraordinary intellectual powers, as witness my acquisition at the age of 16 of degrees from not one, but 3 of the leading universities of Europe, where, despite my British nativity, I spent my formative years. But this fact has no special significance other than as it applies to those events which were set in motion on another New Year's Eve in London 15 years ago. For it was on that evening, as I had planned some weeks before it should be, that I stood outside a door and listened for confirmation of the relationship I knew existed between my best friend and my wife.
Darling, darling, darling.
No, it's all right, Pam. It's all over now.
Yes.
Are you happy?
Yes, now that we've decided, yes. Almost for the first time since I can remember.
I know, darling, and I suppose we should feel sorry for him, but I can't, not after the way he's treated you.
Raymond, what do you suppose he'll do?
It doesn't matter, darling. Tomorrow we'll be on the Atlantic Ocean, and within a month we'll be on my uncle's plantation in Brazil, where he couldn't find us if he looked for 100 years.
No, I suppose it doesn't
Now,
matter.
how long will it take you to pack?
Oh, an hour.
Well, I ought to be back by then. I've just got to pick up the tickets and a few things.
All right, hurry, darling.
I will. Goodbye, darling.
Goodbye.
Good evening, my dear.
John!
Why? What's the matter, Pamela? You look as though you'd seen a ghost.
Why, nothing. You startled me, that's all. You said you were going out of town for the holidays, and you don't usually come in by the back door.
You needn't be alarmed. I shall be only a moment. I forgot something.
Can I get it for you?
Your anxiety for my every wish is touching. But no, thank you. By the way, Pamela, have you any last words?
Any what?
We may not see each other for a while, you know.
What are you talking about, John? What's the matter with you?
Oh, my dear, sometimes I wonder if I married you out of infatuation for your beauty or pity for your stupidity.
Oh, John, please.
Pamela, where do you suppose we shall all be, say, within the month?
Oh, does it really matter so much?
No. I suppose it does not. Within the month, I was on trial for their murder.
You are Henry Jenkins, proprietor of the Crown and Lion, number 17 Buxton Street.
I'm Gatwin, sir. I am. Henry Jenkins, sole owner
Thank
and...
you. Now, will you kindly repeat the words spoken by the prisoner in the dock while in your place of business several weeks ago?
Yes, sir. Well, about 2 weeks ago one night, Mr. Forsyth there, who's a steady customer of mine, sir, although he's not what you call a sociable man.
Yes.
Well, sir, all me other customers had gone home, and I was asking Mr. Forsyth to leave also, just so I could close up my shutters, you know. when all of a sudden he looks up at me and he whispers, kind of hoarse-like, you know, "Jenkins, I did it. I finally did it." Well, not knowing what he did, I naturally asked him what he did.
And what did the prisoner tell you, Mr. Jenkins?
He said, sir, warning me to keep it quiet. I found them together, and I killed them. And then he laughs in a crazy way and adds, "And Jenkins, I hid the bodies where no one will ever find them." That's what he said, sir. So help me it is.
I saw him burning what looked to be a lot of bloody clothes. In the furnace it was. And he didn't try to hide 'em either. Just stared at me kind of odd-like and went right on as brazen as you please, he did.
He told me he wasn't worried at all. He said the two of them won't never get away together, except if they are dead.
I heard him say it on the stair landing one night and several other times in their rooms. "Pamela," he says, "if you don't stop leering at Raymond Tillotson with those evil eyes of yours, I'll see the two of you in your graves. I warn you."
The court feels that it is its duty at this time again to remind the prisoner that he has so far made, nor allowed to be made by counsel in his defense, no cross-examination of witnesses, nor rebuttal to the charges made by the prosecution of any kind, and that this attitude can only result adversely to his cause. The prisoner is therefore once more given opportunity at this time to make such rebuttal. Does the prisoner wish to do so?
No, Your Lordship, I do not.
Does the prisoner wish to make any statement of any nature whatsoever in his defense?
I should merely like to ask the prosecution one question, Your Lordship.
Yes, well, what is it?
Has the prosecution found the bodies?
Well, the prisoner wishes to know if the prosecution has yet produced the bodies of the alleged victims of the crime for which he is on trial.
Well, no, Your Lordship, we have not.
That is all. To kill them had been my plan and my intention, naturally. But not in the usual stupid way such things are done, where men gamble their own lives against the lives of those whom they destroy. Every faculty of my intelligence revolted against such a thought. And so for me the gambler's risk was needless. So I had planned it. It was therefore without fear or question that I stood before the court to hear the verdict, which, in all the writing of it, I had contrived against myself.
Order!
John Forsyth, the court has given most careful consideration to the fact that the bodies of the named victims have not been presented to this court as due evidence and a surety of murder, a fact which admittedly must alter the circumstances of guilt. But this Crown Court, no matter how deeply it desires to aid you, cannot but recognize the fact that you have allowed every shred of evidence and element to point to you as a cold-blooded killer. Under such circumstances, questionable though they may be, I can do only as the King's law directs me to do, tempered with the mercy of His Majesty's court. I hereby sentence you to no more than 20 and no less than 10 years at hard labor for the suspected and willful murders of your wife, one Pamela Felice Forsyth, and one Raymond Elton Tillotson, and may God protect the Crown and the jurisprudence of this court of His Royal Majesty.
10 to 20 years. It was perhaps a bit more than I expected, but I was content. And it may be that there was even the trace of a smile upon my lips as I left the courtroom. Certainly it was justified, if only by the looks of awe and admiration turned in my direction by the spectators. Clearly they recognized my genius, and I knew they were thinking of the countless lesser men who had failed in their efforts to hide even one dead body, whereas I, apparently without effort, had successfully hidden two.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you a star, Paul Henry, in The Angel of Death by Alan Cameron. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. With the holiday excitement over, most of us are glad to enjoy evenings at home again, taking it easy and economizing. What a perfect time to serve Roma California Sherry. Yes, glorious gold and amber Roma Sherry adds so much to happy hours at home, yet costs so very little. More Americans every day make Roma Sherry first call for dinner. You'll find Roma Sherry ideal for entertaining, too. Delicious anytime. For Roma Sherry is a happy, mellow wine with tempting fragrance, satisfying natural sweetness, and superb nut-like taste. Roma Sherry, like all Roma wine, is a true wine, unvaryingly good always. Crushed from choicest grapes, grown in California's finest vineyards, then unhurriedly guided to tempting perfection by Roma's ancient winemaking skill. Bottled at the winery. Get Roma Sherry tomorrow, now selling at lowest prices in years. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma wine, for uniformly fine quality at low cost. Remember, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine.
And now Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Paul Henry as John Forsyth in The Angel of Death, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
It was thus that I began my prison term, and my association with William Waters, a sallow-faced, ill-favored little man who was to be my chief source of amusement and mental exercise for a long time to come, and to illustrate still further the inevitable triumph of the higher intellect over all obstacles and surroundings.
So, you're the great John Forsyth, eh?
You have heard of me, then?
Not half I haven't. The luckiest beggar that ever cheated the hangman.
Luck? There is no such thing as luck.
No? Then how is it you're sitting here safe and sound, and out as free as air in 15 or 20 years, instead of stretching your neck at the end of a rope, eh?
I'm here because I choose to be here. That is all.
Because you choose to be? Tell me, Forsyth, just between the two of us, how did you do it?
By using my brains.
And there's many another tried that before and been caught up with.
Well, simply because they did not really have any brains to start with.
No, it's luck, I tell you. Bad luck, like mine. You want to hear the worst bit of luck that ever ruined a man's life?
If you wish to call it that, why not?
It was like what happened to you in a way. The sweetheart, Agnes her name was, with the biggest, bluest eyes. Oh, the prettiest little thing you'd ever hoped to see.
And you killed her.
I didn't mean to. It was the usual, you know. I'd caught her dead to rights, but she laughed at me. That was the trouble. Threw it in my face, she did. Next thing I knew, something snapped. When my head cleared, there I was sitting on the floor beside her, crying like a baby. And her lying there with her pretty blue eyes staring out of her head and her pretty mouth all twisted. Red marks there on her throat. The marks of the two very hands where I'd strangled the life out of her.
You weren't unlucky. You were stupid.
Oh.
You killed her without planning it. And, what did you do with the body?
Cemented her into the wall of the cellar. And the bloke next door had a gas heater. Exploded and blew out the old ruddy wall between us, it did. By the time I got home, there was firemen and bobbies all over the place. And there was Agnes, what was left of her, lying right out in the middle of the cellar floor for all the world to see.
The truly intelligent man foresees every possibility and guards against it.
Who could foresee a thing like that?
I could.
You could.
I stand before you as the living proof of it. In 10 or 15 years, I shall be free, because I'm intelligent. Whereas you will rot and die here because you are stupid.
Oh, pretty clever, ain't you? Know just about everything there is to know, don't you?
No. Not everything. But quite a lot of things. For instance, I know something about that cough of yours.
Oh, what about it?
The color of your skin, the look about your eyes, the way you breathe. I hope you're not afraid to die, Waters.
Rubbish. What you talking about?
Have you ever heard of retribution, Waters?
What?
The inevitable fate that pursues and at last destroys the criminal mind. Vengeance, you might call it.
Ah, rot. You don't think anything's going to happen to you or me, do you?
Not to me, Waters. For the intelligent man foresees and prevents even that. But to you, Waters. Most certainly to you.
Oh, indeed? And who's going to do all this?
Oh, he's known by various names, Waters. But best known as the Angel of Death. Retribution, the Angel of Death. Absurd, wasn't it? But a most purposeful absurdity. For the intellectual stimulus so necessary to remaining mentally alert during the prison years ahead was here delivered into my hand. An experiment, and one almost impossible under any other conditions. And William Waters would be my guinea pig. An experiment to determine just how far a man might succeed through sheer superiority of intelligence in breaking down and destroying the mind and the body of another. But a simple power of suggestion. I suggested nothing directly, merely a word here, a glance there. Drops of water wearing away the stone.
I got a fever again tonight, haven't I, John?
No. A touch, perhaps, but that is all.
My head feels hot. Oh, does that blasted cough, what does it?
No. You mustn't worry about it. It's very, very bad for people with your condition to worry.
What condition? What condition, John?
Oh, why, nothing. People with a cough like yours, people who feel, indisposed, that's all.
Oh. What's that book you're reading lately?
Just a book, a scientific book that I got from the prison library.
What sort of a scientific book?
General book on medicine, things like that.
Well, let me see it.
No.
Yeah, give it
You
here.
wouldn't understand.
Give it here.
Oh, please, give it back to me. You wouldn't be interested.
Oh. You had it open in this place here, didn't you? This is what you was reading, ain't it?
Well, yes, among other things, but...
Tuberculosis. Is that what I got, John?
Tuberculosis? Oh, don't be silly. There's nothing seriously wrong with
John,
you.
you've got to tell me. You got to tell...
No.
I don't want to die.
You're not going to die. If you take care of yourself.
Oh, but why should it come to me? I've always been healthy. I'm not old yet.
Of course you are not. You're just imagining things.
Imagining things?
You're worrying too much, that's all.
Oh, what makes you think I'm worried?
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes, when you're asleep, Tell me, do you ever have dreams?
What sort of dreams?
Oh, about the past, or...
Oh, you mean about her?
Yes. Do you ever dream you see her lying there on the floor with her eyes bulging out of her head and her mouth all twisted and her tongue all black and swollen?
Oh, John, don't
and your
stop
fingers
it.
digging into her throat?
Stop it!
What's the matter here,
He seems somewhat disturbed in his mind this evening, guard.
Oh, his mind, eh? Oh, that reminds me. Doctor said we was to try to prevail on him to get out of his bunk tomorrow and get outside, get a little exercise and fresh air.
Oh.
You tell him, eh?
Yes.
What was you two muttering about?
Oh, he was just telling me what the doctor said about you.
What?
Well, he wants you to stay in your bunk and get plenty of rest. The time was drawing near, I knew. The time for what I had planned as the culmination of my experiment. Waters was having periods of definite delirium. But I waited. I waited for them to become more pronounced. And then, one night, when I'd listened to him tossing and muttering for hours in his bunk, I crossed over in the darkness.
No, wait, no, it ain't time yet. I don't have to go yet. No.
William Waters. I've come for you, William Waters.
What?
She sent me, William. She sent me. With her eyes staring out of her head, with her black, swollen tongue. I'm the angel of death.
I'll kill you! Take your hands off my throat! Take your hands off death! I'll kill you! What's going on in here, eh?
I said we'll quiet you. I had to hit him. The man is out of his mind. He thinks I'm some angel of death or something.
Where you? Come on now. Up on your feet. Come on now then, Waters. Now what's the matter with you, eh?
Forsyth, you. It's you what's done this to me.
I told you.
It's
he
you.
was out of his head.
It's you what's done it to me. I see it now.
Come on, you're coming on me.
Get it up, Forsyth. I'll get out of here for this. If it takes 100 years, I'll kill you. I'll kill
you. It was interesting while it lasted. And I've always believed that, given a little more time, I could have ended my experiment successfully. But I had other plans to make now. Plans for the day when I would be free. And at last it came. At last I was walking away from the prison gate, a free man. Now began my search. It was not difficult. It led me at last to Paris, to a small apartment, where I went tonight, December 31st, New Year's Eve.
Yes?
Good evening.
Well, good evening. Did you wish to see someone?
Don't you recognize me?
Well, I do, of course, but are you a friend of Pam's?
I am indeed.
Who is it, darling?
It's a friend of yours, dear.
A friend of both of you.
John.
Yes. Huh? In fact, your husband, my dear, and Raymond's best friend.
John, it's been...
15 years, yes. You only returned to Paris recently, didn't you?
Yes, a short time ago.
And you never knew that I was convicted and sentenced to prison for your double murder, did you?
Murder?
Oh, that was quite as I planned it. I knew where you were, but the authorities did not.
John.
But perhaps you have heard of a curious legal technicality which provides that a man cannot be convicted twice for the same crime. So you see, I've already paid for your murders. And now I've come to collect an ancient debt.
Put down that gun.
I then walked calmly from their rooms. I made no effort to hide my face, my trail, or my identity. I can now defy every element in life and in law. After 15 years, I've committed the crimes for which I have already paid my debt to society. I shall mail this letter to the police, who may give it to the newspapers, whoever wants it. Although it is now a matter of indifference to me if the world remarks upon my cleverness or my patience. For my life is complete. No man has ever known such happiness. John Forsyth. Yes, come in, Madame Leclerc. I have a letter now ready. I wish you to mail for me.
I've come for you, John Forsyth.
Waters.
I'm not Waters any longer.
How did you get out?
They said I was insane. So I hadn't been responsible when I killed her. And then they said I was cured, sane again. And then they let me out. But there was one thing they never knew. They never knew who I really was.
What are you talking about?
That's why I've come for you, John Forsyth.
Me?
I am the chosen messenger of an higher power.
Look here, Waters.
Die, John Forsyth!
And the story ends with a newspaper clipping. Let me read it to you. Paris, January 1st. This gay metropolis spent one of its quietest New Year's Eves in recent years. In all Greater Paris, there are only 2 recorded deaths by violence, both of which, by a strange coincidence, occurred within a few yards of each other. The first was the fatal shooting by an unknown assailant of an Englishman, John Forsyth. The second victim, unidentified, had apparently leaped from a window or roof of the same dwelling occupied by Forsyth. Police were at a loss to explain a weird black silk robe and cape worn by the man. Geneviève Leclerc, concierge of the building, alleges to have heard a voice repeating an English phrase, "I am the angel of death," just before the suicidal leap. However, this can hardly have any bearing on the case, since the said phrase was undoubtedly uttered by New Year's revelers in the neighborhood. Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines, R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. How much more pleasureful any meal becomes when Roma wine is served. Yes, a fine table wine such as Roma California Burgundy makes any food taste better, brings out all the flavor, lends romance and friendly companionship to the meal. America's famed hostess Elsa Maxwell says, "My simple secret for gracious and enjoyable dining is to serve my guests Roma Burgundy. It's so easy to make your meals more delicious, more exciting, as Elsa Maxwell does. Because Roma wine costs so little, anyone can serve it often. Complement your next dinner with the fruity fragrance and appetizing piquant taste of red, robust Roma Burgundy. Get Roma Burgundy tomorrow, now selling at the lowest prices in years. And you get extra saving when you buy Roma in the half-gallon and gallon size. No wine but Roma offers you so much for so little. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma wine, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world."
Paul Henry appeared through the courtesy of Warner Brothers Studios and will soon be seen in their production, Devotion. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Mr. Phil Terry as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System. Now, Roma Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present
Suspense. Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Mr. Joseph Cotton as star of The Pasteboard Box, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Mr. Joseph Cotton in a remarkable tale of suspense.
Save it, Walter. Taking all of that I can. I'm through, you understand? Through.
Sorry, sir. I couldn't help but overhear you.
What's the difference now?
I hope you haven't quarreled seriously with your brother.
Quarreled? What else have I ever done with him but quarrel?
Oh, I realize he's a bit difficult at times, sir, but I'm sure he has your best interest at heart.
Yeah, well, from now on, he can stop worrying about my best interests because I'm getting out of his life tonight for good. Grabbed my hat and coat and rushed out of the house looking wild-eyed and distracted. I caught a taxi right in front of the door and told him to go to the 23rd Street ferry. On the ferry, I stood by the stern rail. I walked up and down, puffing hard on a cigarette, looking out into the fog and acting nervous and jumpy. I leaned against the rail and bowed my head down on my arms. 2 or 3 people standing around out there began to look at me. Then, when we were about a third of the way out in the stream, I took off my coat, had my name and address written with indelible ink on the label, and my hat that had my initials stamped in gold on the sweatband, and laid them down on the deck, climbed up on the rail, and jumped. It was as easy as that. A fight with my brother that was loud enough so the houseman couldn't help but hear it. A jump off the 23rd Street ferry, leaving plenty of identification behind. An easy swim back to shore where I had planted my dry clothes. And a phone call to the news to report my own suicide. It was just as easy as that. On Friday afternoon, I waited across the street until I saw Williams, the houseman, leaving for his usual weekend. And then I let myself in the front door and walked back to the study. Come in, Williams. I thought you'd gone. Hello, Walter. Jack. What's the matter, Walter? You look as though you'd seen a ghost. Jack, well, haven't you seen the papers? I thought you were dead. Yeah, I changed my mind. Jack, how could you? How could you have done such a thing? I didn't. I just went swimming, that's all. Don't tell anyone I'm here. Yes? This is Mr. Parcell. Yes, I told you once it was broken. Well, I'm sure I don't know. I know certainly I didn't break it. Yes, it's still in the box. Well, I'll send you to pieces if you like. Well, that's a little late, I'm afraid. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. It's the principle of the thing. Besides, I'm going out of town. Yes. Yes, I suppose there'll be someone here to receive it. All right. Silly. Goldfish bowl. What? Oh, you know, I ordered a larger one, and it arrived this morning, all smashed up, and they were arguing about sending me a new one. There it is in that big square box. You can see for yourself it's smashed. That's certainly like you, Walter. At the last minute, you worrying about a $2 goldfish bowl. What do you mean, the last minute? Well, you just said over the phone you were going out of town. Yes? What's the idea? Well, Jack, I was terribly upset when I heard that Well, I thought... Albert, where are you going? Well, I hadn't quite made up my mind. I just wanted to get away. Taking quite a lot of luggage for just a little trip out of town, aren't you, Walter? Clearing the papers out of your desk, too, huh? Well, I simply thought I could get a little work done while I was away. Or were you thinking of staying away for a while because somebody might ask questions about why I jumped in the river and the answers might make you look like a heel? Of course not. Such an idea never entered my head. You always were yellow. You'd run away from anything. Jack, that's quite enough. That's right. Those are the truest words you ever spoke. And I wouldn't bother about packing luggage anymore if I were you. What? Why not? Because where you're going, you won't need any luggage. What do you mean? This is what I mean. Jack! Don't you're choking. You're choking. You won't need any luggage anymore, brother. It's like Cain felt about Abel, I suppose. There he was, lying on the floor, looking as though it was me lying there, only it wasn't. It was him, and I was glad. It's a funny thing about twins, being one yourself. You notice them more than most people would. And all the twins I'd ever known had got along good. Extra good. But not me and Walter. I hated him ever since I could remember. I hated him because the old man was about the only one who could tell us apart. And it was Walter he always called to him, not me. I hated him for what he got and what I didn't. I hated him because he was always good and I was bad. I hated him because the old man left everything he had to him, and it wasn't hay either. And because I couldn't do anything about it on account of that forgery rap I'd taken. And I hated him for the way he'd taken care of me since I got out of jail and thrown it in my face every chance he got. I hated him for all those things and a lot more. And I was dead. And I'd killed him. And I was glad. You don't believe me? Brother, I felt great. I went over to the mirror and combed my hair over to the left side like his, and I locked the study door and went upstairs to the bathroom and shaved off my mustache. He was clean shaven. Went back in the bedroom and put on one of his suits. And when I got through and stood in front of the big full-length bedroom mirror, I looked the spitting image of him. No one in the world could have told that I wasn't Walter Parcell. In fact, I was Walter Parcell. I went back to the study. All I had to do now was dispose of the evidence. But first, I couldn't resist looking around. It was mine now. All mine. Those stupid fish he had all over the place in glass tanks, the books he never read, and all the rest of it. In his desk was a list of all the bonds and securities and the number of his safe deposit box and the combination to the safe and the bank book, all nice and neat. And on the desk was a picture of Helen Winters, the little vixen he was engaged to. And I made a mental note that I'd at least have to call her before I left town. It looked funny if I didn't. I might even do more than call her. Well, there's no use stalling any longer. It had to be done. I got the body over my shoulder and carried it upstairs and put it in the bathtub. I locked the bathroom door from the inside. Then I got to work.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you a star, Joseph Cotton, in the Pasteboard Box by Joe Grenzebach. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Here's a simple secret about entertaining that has won compliments for many a hostess. The next time you have dinner guests, keep them pleasantly occupied during that hour before the meal by serving Roma California Sherry. Serving Roma Sherry before dinner has become a friendly American custom. Yes, glorious golden amber Roma Sherry with tempting fragrance and intriguing nut-like taste is the perfect first call for dinner. And you'll find Roma Sherry equally pleasing with a tasty evening snack, a delightful wine to serve any time. Roma Sherry, like all Roma wine, is a true natural wine, crushed from choicest grapes, grown in California's finest vineyards, then unhurriedly guided to taste perfection by Roma's ancient winemaking skill. Bottled at the winery for unvarying goodness. Delight your family, your guests, with delicious Roma Sherry, now selling at the lowest prices in years. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, for uniformly high quality at low cost. Remember, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wines.
And now, Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Joseph Cotton as star of the Pasteboard Box, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
It was early morning before I was able to leave the house. I walked to the nearest subway with a suitcase, a heavy suitcase, because it was also weighted down inside with old furnace grates and sash weights. I got off the subway at Dyckman Street and took the Dyckman Street ferry to Jersey. About halfway across, the suitcase that I had on the rail, as though it was something to lean on, just sort of slipped out of my hands into the river. I looked mad and then foolish, and the people that saw it snickered behind their hands. Well, that was that. About an hour later, the same thing happened on a 42nd Street ferry. And the mortal remains of Walter Parcell were gone. All but his head. At first, I hadn't known what to do with that head. It wouldn't fit into either of the suitcases, no matter what I did. And then I thought of that box. That big pasteboard box that the goldfish bowl had come in. It was still sitting there in the corner of the desk. I weighted it and wrapped up the outside in the paper it had come in and started out again. The 14th Street ferry this time. I had it balanced up there on the rail just like I'd had the others, and then...
Hey, look out! Hey, it's all right, mister. I got it.
I let go.
Oh, I've got it. What? What's the matter?
I thought you dropped it.
Oh, no, here it is. Hey, that was close, all right. Another second and it would have been gone for good.
Yeah, it's been gone for good, all right. Walking across 14th Street on the way back from the ferry, people were pushing behind me, and the next thing I knew, I was in a department store. I was walking down one of the aisles just to keep moving and not to attract attention when it hit me right between the eyes. There was another box, a box just like mine. It was sitting up there on one of the counters, and next to it was an old guy looking at some bow ties. I walked over and put my box on the counter next to his, and I pretended I was waiting for a clerk. Then, after a couple of minutes, I pretended to change my mind. I picked up the box, his box, of course, and started for the door.
Hey, I say there. I say, sir, you've taken my box.
Oh, what do you mean, your box? Let go of me.
But it is. It's my box. You left yours there on the counter.
Oh, you crazy. Let go, I tell you.
What's the trouble here?
Why, this man's got my package and won't give it back.
Oh, shoplifter, eh?
No, it's not that. He left a package of his own there, but he insists that mine is his.
What's in it?
A parchment lampshade. I bought it in your furniture department just now.
Mm-hmm.
The girl would confirm that.
I see. All right, what's in yours?
Mine?
Yes, what's in your box?
Why,
Well, we'll open it up and see.
No, you can't.
The only way to tell, open them both up. If you think this is your package...
No, wait, I made a mistake. It isn't, Here, now give me mine.
Now, just a minute.
Give it to me.
Just a minute.
Give it to me.
Oh, give it to him. It's his. I saw him put it there.
Very well.
Thank you.
Why, he acted like a madman.
maybe I did act like a madman. I guess I did because I was pretty close to panic when I got out of that store. I started walking. I just walked. I don't know how or for how long or what, but all I could think of was, what'll I do now? What'll I do with it? What'll I do with it? I didn't snap out of it until I found myself a half block from home, and not knowing how I got there, all I knew was I still had that box and I had to get rid of it. Then I saw the sewer. A corner sewer with a big wide opening. I crossed over to it as though I were going to step on the curve. Stumbled. I gave it a good kick. Slid in and I heard it fall. Oh. I got home. A half hour later, I was just beginning to relax, and the doorbell rang. I went out in the hall, switched on the vestibule lights, and opened the door. There stood a couple of kids.
Yes, this is yours, ain't it, mister?
What?
We were standing across the street when you dropped it. Then we saw you come into this house. That's how we know. We got some string on a fish hook and pulled it out. It is yours, ain't it?
No.
You mean it ain't yours?
No, I never saw it before in my life. Now beat it.
Oh, then we can open it, huh, Johnny?
Wait, no.
I don't know. Maybe we ought to take it to the cops.
Here, you give that to me. Give it to me.
But you said...
I made a mistake. I didn't recognize it. Now give it to me. Beat it.
Well, aren't you glad to get it back?
Huh? Oh, sure. Here.
Thanks. Gee, $5. There must be diamonds in that box.
It was back. The kids were hardly down the steps before I was out the house without a hat, a coat, or anything running toward 2nd Avenue. I didn't care who saw me now. Didn't dare stop for a taxi. I had to keep running. I couldn't stop for a second. I kept on running up 2nd Avenue to 59th Street, going out onto the bridge. I was still running, and I didn't stop until I got nearly to the middle. And then I threw it. Out over the railing as far as I could. I watched it arc down and saw the pipe splash in the darkness as it hit the water a couple of 100 feet below. It was gone. No matter what, it was gone. Somehow I got home. But it was daylight before I could get myself to sleep. Monday morning, I felt better. Got up fairly early and went down to study and make my plans. Seeing the picture of Helen Winters on the desk reminded me I ought to call her. If Walter left town without even calling the girl he was supposed to marry, it would look so good. There was no answer, so I hung up. Then I rang for Williams, the house man.
Yes, sir?
Oh, Williams, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I'm going to have to let you go.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it, sir. If it's anything I've done.
Quite the contrary. I've found our association most pleasant, but the death of my brother has been quite a shock, of course.
Of course, sir.
I'm going away. I don't know how long I shall be gone, or when I shall be back, or if I shall come back here at all. So I thought it was best this way.
Yes, sir. When will you be leaving, sir?
Within a few days. There's no hurry, but I wanted you to be able to make your own plans. I'm making arrangements this afternoon to sell the house and the furniture, and the associations here are painful, you understand.
I understand, sir.
My brother Jack had his faults, of course. We all do.
I know how you feel, sir.
But after all, Williams, he was my brother.
Yes, sir. Blood is thicker than water.
You're so right, Williams. That first performance left me feeling pretty satisfied. The next one wasn't so easy. But for things to look right, it had to be done. So after breakfast, I went down to police headquarters.
Well, what can we do for you, Mr. Parcell?
Why, I'm going away for a while, and I wondered if you had recovered my poor brother's...
His body?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. We haven't, Mr. Parcell.
Oh, I see.
Now, while you're here, though, there is something you might look at for us.
Very well.
This way, please. It's just a routine matter of identification, but we like to have these things on the record, you know.
Of course. Something you found?
That's right. Fished it out of the East River this morning.
The East River?
That's right. The East River.
For a minute, I just stopped breathing. Because it wasn't in the East River that I jumped off the ferry. That was on the other side of the island. The East River was where I'd thrown it. And then I was all right again because I saw what he had. A pair of trousers. Mine.
You recognize these, Mr. Parcell?
Oh, yes. Those are the trousers my brother wore the night he died.
Uh-huh. Probably kicked him off and tried to swim to shore. Yeah, well, thanks, Mr. Parcell. That's all we need.
Very well, but you said the East River, and it was the North River where poor Jack...
Oh, carried down by the current and around by the tide. Caught in the propeller of a ship, maybe. Funny things happen in the waters around this island, Mr. Parcell.
Yes. Yes, I imagine they do. So, that was all right, too. When I got out of headquarters, I went across the street to a pay station and phoned Helen Winters again. There was no answer. I hung up. Then I went uptown to the bank, Walter's Bank. I'd never been in it before in my life, and I'd been wondering how I'd know who to be chummy to, but I needn't have worried about that.
Well, good morning, Mr. Parcell.
Good morning.
We were all terribly sorry to hear of your bereavement, Mr. Parcell.
Yes, thank you. As a matter of fact, that's what brings me here.
I see. Something about the estate?
Oh, no, but I shall want to get into my safe deposit box.
Why, certainly, Mr. Parcell.
Thank you. By the way, do you happen to know what my cash balance is? Just roughly.
Roughly between $32,000 and $33,000.
I'll want $5,000 in cash. I'll make out a counter check. You can forward the rest when I've made banking connections in Mexico.
Oh, Mexico? What, do you expect to be in Mexico for any length of time?
Oh, yes, for quite a length of time.
Oh. Shall we go down to the vault, sir?
Oh, yes, by all means. When I got out of the bank, it was raining, but I didn't care. I liked it. I was walking on air anyway, and I decided to walk home that way. It's nearly 30 blocks, and I was soaking wet when I got there, but what's a little rain to a guy with $100,000 in his pocket? The front door wasn't locked, and in I went, and I hung up my hat and coat in the hall and was wondering whether to have a nice hot bath before calling Helen Winters. And when I saw it. The box, that horrible pasteboard box that had come back. For a second, I thought my mind had gone. But there it was, sitting on the desk. Wet and soggy, and the limp paper peeling off as though it had been fished out of the river just that minute. And then I remembered I hadn't seen it sink, and what the cop had said about tides and currents. Then the doorbell rang. I rushed to the window. There was a police car outside. For the moment, I thought of grabbing up the box and running, escaping out of the back somehow, and I knew that wasn't any use. It didn't matter. If it was some sort of a police plant, it didn't matter anyway. And if it wasn't, if it was just another one of those terrible coincidences, there was still time. Whatever they wanted, I could bluff it through, and there'd still be time. I pulled myself together and went out and opened the door. Yes?
We're from headquarters.
Yes.
You're Walter Parcell?
Walter Parcell? They thought I was Walter Parcell. They didn't even know he was dead. That was all right. There was still time.
I said, are you Walter Parcell?
Yes, I'm Walter Parcell.
You know a young woman named Helen Winters?
Oh, Helen Winters, of course. She's my fiancée.
Then I'm afraid you're going to have to come along with us, Mr. Parcell.
With you? Why?
Helen Winters has been murdered. And I might as well tell you now that anything you say will be used against you. The evidence is pretty conclusive.
That
you murdered her.
I didn't. I couldn't.
We found her this morning in the coroner report. She was killed Friday night. You were seen entering the place that night, and you were seen leaving. A gun that we traced to you was found in an ash can a block away. Now, what do you expect us to believe, Mr. Parcell?
Wait a minute. There's a mistake. There's been a terrible mistake. I'm not Walter Parcell. I'm his brother. I'm his brother, Jack.
The one who committed suicide?
Yes. Only I didn't. I changed my mind. I swam back to shore. I came back here, and I found Walter. He was dead. He killed himself. And now I know why. Don't you see? Because he murdered the girl.
You didn't report it. Where's the body?
The body?
Yes, the body.
No, that's it. Now, look, everyone knew I quarreled with Walter, and so I thought they'd pin it on me. I thought they'd say I killed him. So I disposed of the body. Then I took his place. We're twins, don't you see?
Mr. Parcell, I've been in this business a long time, and I've heard some beauties. But I never had a man ask me to believe one like that.
It's true. I swear it's true.
All right, then where's the body?
I threw it in the river with the weight.
I thought so. Come on.
Now, wait a minute.
Come on.
I can prove it. I can prove it.
Yeah, how?
Because I still got his head.
His head?
That would prove it, wouldn't it? Or wouldn't it?
It certainly would.
Come on. I'll show you. Here in that box, see?
I'd open it.
Sure. I threw it in the river, and it got back here somehow. It's still wet, see?
That doesn't look like anybody's head to me, Mr. Parcell. To me, it looks like just an ordinary goldfish bowl.
That was it, of course. The goldfish bowl he'd been arguing about on the telephone when I came back and found him packing up, running away, because he'd murdered his girlfriend. So, I don't know where Walter is now in those swirling tides and currents, but I know one thing. Wherever he is, he must be laughing his head off.
Suspense. Presented by Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Before we hear again from Joseph Cotton, the star of the Pasteboard Box, tonight's suspense play, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Each day, more Americans are switching to Roma and discovering what a wonderful help Roma wine is in making simple home entertainment successful. The reason? Taste. Superb taste for only pennies a glass. And, says famous hostess Elsa Maxwell, there's a Roma California wine to delight everyone. Rich, ruby red Roma port, mellow, nut-like Roma sherry, smooth, golden Roma muscatel, and flame-bright Roma Tokay. I give my guests their choice and share with them Roma's goodness. Each of these fine Roma wines may be served with cake, fruit, nuts, or other tasty snacks when guests drop in. Many prefer these wines with dessert. You'll find them delightful anytime. Get Roma wine tomorrow. You'll be amazed how little such taste luxury costs. For Roma wine, famed for uniformly fine quality, is now selling at the lowest prices in years. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma wine, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is Joseph Cotton. I've enjoyed my appearance on Suspense as I always do. Next Thursday, a unique actress whom all of us here in Hollywood love and admire, as you do, will be the leading lady on Suspense, Dame May Whitty. Miss Whitty will appear as a kindly lady whose advertisement requesting genteel part-time employment involves her in a predicament which threatens first her freedom and then her very life. I'm sure we'll all want to make it a point to listen. And by the way, if you feel that the character I played tonight was a little, what shall we say, extreme, please forgive me. I've never played twins before, and I guess I just lost my hand.
Joseph Cotton appeared through the courtesy of David O. Selznick, in whose production Duel in the Sun he will soon be seen. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Dame May Whitty as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. Now, Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present
Suspense. Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Dame May Whitty as star of My Dear Niece, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Dame May Whitty in a remarkable tale of suspense.
My dear niece, I'm writing you this letter in explanation of certain recent actions of mine, about which you're probably curious. As you know, since that day 4 years ago when your dear uncle died, may he rest in peace, I've been living a busy, if lonely, life. Fortunately, in the city as small as Hilton, one has many friends, but they in no way could make up for the loneliness I felt. As you recall, you were continually urging me to try to get some sort of a position. And so, finally, I took your advice and placed an advertisement in our local paper. It was 6 weeks ago this next Friday that I inserted the ad. I'm sure you must have chuckled when you read it.
Widowed woman, genteel, some secretarial experience, drives own car, desires position of interest with reliable business house. Address Miss Emily Rogers, Box 2B, or phone Hilton 22412.
I was somewhat surprised to receive a reply the next morning. I'd finished my breakfast. Yes, you're right. I still drink a cup of hot water on arising each morning. I'd finished at all events when the phone rang. Hello?
Mrs. Emily Rogers, please.
This is she speaking.
I'm calling about the ad you ran in the evening paper yesterday.
Oh, yes.
I think I can offer you a position you'd be interested in, Mrs. Rogers. My name is Bruce.
How do you do, Mr. Bruce?
We have a very small publishing house, Mrs. Rogers, and need someone to take care of any of the contacts we might wish to make in your part of the country.
Oh, aren't you from Hilton, then?
No, our offices are in Los Angeles. We'd pay you $50 a week, providing you could use your home as an office, although there wouldn't be much office work required. As I say, the position primarily would be one of establishing contacts.
Why, it sounds fine, Mr...
Bruce.
It sounds fine, Mr. Bruce.
Good. Well, then, consider yourself under salary beginning immediately, Mrs. Rogers. I'll phone you again as soon as there's something more definite for you to do.
And that's how I got the job. I assumed naturally that I would immediately receive instructions from Mr. Bruce as to how I should go about establishing contacts. The first word I heard after the telephone conversation was when the postman arrived the next Saturday with an envelope for me containing a check for $50. There was no return address on the envelope, and the check was a personal one bearing no company name. It was signed R.L. Bruce. 3 weeks went by in this fashion. Each Saturday I would receive the $50 check in the mail, but always the envelope was without a return address, and the check was a personal check. All the envelopes were postmarked Los Angeles, but other than that I haven't the smallest clue as to the identity of the company by which I was employed. I've always believed that money is very precious, and as your uncle, may his soul rest in peace, used to say, no self-respecting person would accept it without doing a lick of work for it. I was dissatisfied with the arrangement. I would tell this Mr. Bruce when he phoned that I wished to resign my position with his small publishing house. It was on the Wednesday, after the arrival of the third check, that I again received a telephone call from Mr. Bruce. He was charming, as he'd been on the first call. And before I had the chance to tell him of my wish to resign...
Well, I have your first assignment for you, Mrs. Rogers.
Oh, I wanted to talk to you about that, Mr. Bruce.
Oh, getting impatient, were you? Well, this will keep you busy for a while.
Really?
Yes, Mr. Paul Stevens will arrive in Hilton this afternoon. Now, he's one of our most promising new authors, and I'm going to have to ask a big favor of you, Mrs. Rogers.
Why, what sort of a favor, Mr. Bruce?
Well, Mr. Stevens has some rewriting on a novel we plan publishing in a few months, and too many people interrupt him here in Los Angeles, so I wonder if you could put him up at your home until he finishes.
Why, I don't know.
Oh, he'll be no bother, Mrs. Rogers, and of course, all expenses will be covered. He has an awful lot of work to do.
Well, yes, I suppose I could.
Oh, that's fine. It's just a place for him to get away. Oh, and one more favor.
Yes?
Just so we're sure he's not bothered. Please don't tell anyone he's staying with you.
And that's all I knew of the job, my dear niece. Well, at last I'd be doing something for my pay, which to me was very important. I waited around the house all day, afraid to leave, even to do my shopping, for fear I'd miss the telephone call from Mr. Stevens. It was quite late in the afternoon, almost 5 o'clock, when the telephone rang. Hello?
Mrs. Rogers?
This is Mrs. Rogers.
This is Paul Stevens, Mrs. Rogers.
Oh, yes, Mr. Stevens. I've been expecting your call. Where are you? I'll come and pick you up.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I'm at the corner... Oh, just a minute. The corner of Brookside and Sierra Madre.
The corner of Brookside and Sierra Madre. Fine. I'll be driving a black Buick convertible, and the right fender's dented. A parking station attendant did it.
Black Buick convertible. I'll be waiting. Bye.
Goodbye, Mr. Stevens. Oh, Mr. Stevens. Oh. I remembered I hadn't asked Mr. Stevens what he looked like, so that I would be able to recognize him. Oh, but then I thought that Brookside and Sierra Madre is not a busy intersection, and that the chances of there being more than one stranger at the corner were slight. I left the house immediately and drove through town to where Brookside crosses Sierra Madre. The first nervousness I felt was when arriving at the corner, I found myself faced with this problem of identification. There were many cars and a rather large and excited crowd gathered at the corner.
Come on now, stand back, everybody, please.
Oh, hello there, Mrs. Rogers.
Officer, what's happened?
A hit-and-run accident a few minutes ago.
Oh, how dreadful. Who was hit?
A man about 35. No one I know.
Was he badly hurt?
He's dead.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. Oh, please, now back.
Officer, I was supposed to meet someone, a gentleman here, a Mr. Paul Stevens. I don't suppose that this poor gentleman could be...
Well, now, the ambulance will be here in a few minutes, Mrs. Rogers. I'll call you when we find out who it is, if you like.
Would you? I'd be very grateful.
I'll call you later. All right, now, please, kid, stand back, will you?
Mrs. Rogers?
Yes?
I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. I'm Paul Stevens.
Mr. Stevens? Oh, I'm so relieved. Well, of course. Please get in. The accident upset me. I was afraid for a minute it was you.
No, it wasn't me.
Won't you get in?
Thank you.
Have you had your dinner?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to go to your house, if you don't mind.
Well, of course, Mr. Stevens. It won't take long. I was really terribly relieved, and I thought what a worrier I was, because for a few minutes I really had been sure that Paul Stevens was dead. But now everything was fine. I tried making conversation with Mr. Stevens on the drive home, but he seemed tired and not inclined to talk. And so we drove quietly back through town and to my house. We went inside, and I showed Mr. Stevens up to his room, and then went into the living room to tidy up. The telephone rang as I was setting out some ashtrays. Hello?
Hello, Mrs. Rogers. This is Officer Barnes.
Oh, yes, officer. I'm glad you called. I wanted to tell you that I met
that
Mr.
identification for you.
Yes, that's what I wanted to tell you, officer.
The name was Paul Stevens, all right. We had a handbill on him, is how we knew. He was wanted for a payroll robbery in L.A., and he wasn't hit by a car. He was thrown from a car. He was murdered. Hello?
I couldn't answer. I stood there, frozen, with the telephone receiver in my hand, looking at the door to the hallway, where the man who'd called himself Paul Stevens stood, smiling tightly, holding a gun in his hand. A gun that was pointed right at me.
Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you a star, Dame May Whitty, in My Dear Niece by Elliot Lewis. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Entertaining graciously, smartly, and inexpensively is no problem to the millions of good hostesses who regularly serve Roma Muscatel. Because Roma Muscatel is a pleasureful taste delight with nuts or cake. A luxurious complement to dessert. It adds so much to friendly hours with guests. Yet Roma Muscatel costs only pennies a glass. Enrich your happy hours at home with Roma Muscatel. Enjoy often the distinctive muscat grape fragrance, warming golden radiance, and naturally sweet, mellow goodness. Like all Roma wine, Roma Muscatel is a true wine, crushed from choicest grapes, grown in California's finest vineyards, then unhurriedly guided to tempting taste perfection by the age-old skill of Roma's master vintners. Bottled at the famous Roma winery to bring you unvarying goodness always. Get Roma Muscatel tomorrow, now at the lowest prices in years. Remember, for uniformly fine quality at low cost, insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma wine, made in California, for enjoyment throughout the world.
And now, Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Dame May Whitty as Aunt Emily in My Dear Niece, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
My mouth felt frozen, my throat dry. I stared fascinated down the barrel of the gun pointing at me.
Mrs. Rogers? You there, Mrs. Rogers? Hello? Hello?
Thank him and hang up.
Hello, Mrs. Rogers. Are you all right?
Yes. Yes. I'm all right, officer. I was...
Thank him and hang up.
I was... Thank you, officer. He walked away from me then and sat across the room where he could watch me and also see anyone who might come to the front door. The gun rested in his lap. I stood and stared at him. My mind raced. I tried to think of what to do. I was surprised when he spoke.
Sit down, if you like.
Who are you? Why did you tell me you were Mr. Stevens?
Sit down.
Who are you? How dare you pretend to be Mr. Stevens?
I'm stupid.
What?
I didn't think they'd find out who he was. I didn't know he was hot.
You killed...
Yes. I killed Paul Stevens.
That's all he would say. I tried to find out who he was and why he'd chosen me and why he'd killed Mr. Stevens and what he was going to do next, but he wouldn't answer me. He wouldn't say anything. He looked over at me occasionally and smiled. It was beginning to get dark, and I got up to turn on the lights.
What are you doing?
It's dark. I thought
I like it dark.
My house doesn't look well in the dark.
We'll be going out in a few minutes, Mrs. Rogers.
Where are we going?
Oh, we're going out for dinner, Mrs. Rogers. You're going to be my dinner guest. Why did the cop call you?
How did you know he called me?
The phone upstairs. I was expecting a call. Why did he call you?
I thought you were dead. I thought Mr. Stevens was dead.
All right. Get your face on, Mrs. Rogers. I have a very important engagement.
We left the house then, got in the car, and drove to a restaurant I'd never been in before. It's on the highway, out past the other side of town, and has quite a bad reputation. The man didn't know where it was, but he knew the name. All the while I was trying to remember who he was. I say remember because there was something familiar about him. But what that something was, my dear niece, I couldn't for the life of me think. An attendant took the car when we arrived at the roadhouse, and we went inside. We just sat down at a table when a small and very thin, dark-complexioned man slid into the seat next to the man who wasn't Mr. Stevens.
What are you doing here?
I had to come. It didn't work. They found out who he was.
Why didn't you stay hidden?
She knows I'm not Stevens. The cop told him.
You could stay at her house anyway, couldn't you? You have to come out where people can pick you up.
Take it easy, Al.
Nuts easy. What's the matter with you? Mary figures out a foolproof way for you to get rid of a guy and hide out right under the cops' noses, and then you go and louse up the whole deal.
It's not loused up.
It will be if you don't get away quick.
Maybe. Oh, I don't think you've met Mrs. Rogers. Mrs. Rogers, this is Mr. Al Newholt, who owns this restaurant.
Yes.
I Look, you better get back to L.A.
What good would it do? Have you got any contacts in that part of the country?
Suddenly, I knew. I knew who the man was. Because as he talked to Al, I remembered that voice.
We need someone to take care of any contacts we might wish to make in your part of the country.
It was Mr. Bruce. The same Mr. Bruce who'd given me my job and sent me the checks, and who'd called me that morning and told me to expect Mr. Stevens that afternoon, and to put up Mr. Stevens at my home for a while.
How did they find out?
What?
You said they found out who he was. How?
It was hot. They had pictures and prints on him. I dumped them at the corner just before I met her.
You're Mr. Bruce.
He did that payroll job. What did you say?
He's Mr. Bruce.
Well, that's very good, Mrs. Rogers. How did you know?
I just remembered your voice.
It doesn't make any difference. You know too much about this anyway.
Doesn't make any difference?
You want me to take her with me, Al?
I don't want her around here. Somebody might have seen her car drive in. They'd look.
I think we'll go back to her house and start fresh. That way it'll be harder checking where she went.
Whatever you do, do it now. The crowd starts coming for dinner soon, and someone will see you.
Yeah, okay. Shall we leave now, Mrs. Rogers?
Where are we going?
We're going to your house, Mrs. Rogers. After that, I'm not sure. But I think I'll have to kill you. We left then. I can't describe my fright. But it all seemed so hopeless that I suppose I was more resigned than frightened. We drove back through town, Mr. Bruce sitting very quietly next to me in the front seat. My car's not new, as you know, and although I often have trouble with it, I never before had the horn stick. But that night it stuck, right on the corner of Brookside and Sierra Madre. Stop blowing your horn.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bruce. I'm not blowing my horn. It's gotten stuck.
Stop the car. Stop the car. Now, stay where you are and don't try to drive away, see?
Yes, I see.
Okay. Let's get out of here.
You got the horn fixed, Mrs. Rogers?
Who's that?
Evening, Mrs. Rogers.
Tell him everything's all right.
Want me to fix that horn for you?
Mr. Mayor, no, thank you. It's all right.
Oh, it'll only take me a second to fix it so you can use it.
Never mind. Mr. Mayors, this is Mr. Paul Stevens.
Oh, pleased to meet you.
How are you?
I see you pulled them wires to stop the horn. I usually take care of Mrs. Rogers' car myself. Makes me feel funny when something goes wrong with it.
Oh, of course.
I'll bring it in the morning, Mr. Mayors.
Oh, no sense you're bothering Mrs. Rogers. I'll go along with you now if you like and take you home. Not safe driving without a horn.
Oh, I think that's an excellent idea.
I believe you said you wanted to show me the town this evening, Mrs. Rogers. Wouldn't you need the car?
Well, I suppose...
I was looking forward to the drive. You don't mind?
No, of course. You'll pick the car up, though, in the morning, Mr. Mayors. I had promised Mr. Stevens I'd take him for a ride.
Sure, of course.
Thanks for your trouble, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, glad to help. It is such a little town. We all know each other and like to help each other. That's so, Mrs. Rogers?
Yes.
Well, good night, Mrs. Rogers. And I'm glad to have met you, Mr. Stevens.
The rest of the drive was uneventful. The street lights were on now, and flashes of light from them darted into the car and lighted up the sullen face of the man who sat tensely by my side. I tried to remember all the conversations I'd had with him, to find the reason for his choosing me out of all the people who must have placed advertisements that day as the person with whom he would hide out. For by now, my dear niece, I was convinced that Mr. Bruce had deliberately set out to murder Mr. Stevens for some reason, and hide out in my house where the police would be most unlikely to look for him. But why my house? Why had he chosen me? When we got to my house, Mr. Bruce directed me to leave my car on the street, and we went up the dark pathway to the front door. Mr. Bruce a few steps behind me, all the way. Quite dark tonight, isn't it?
Yes.
Why are we going inside?
I have to make a phone call.
I see.
Open the door. Douse that light.
Pardon me?
Turn off the light.
Oh, sorry.
Now, pull the blinds down on that window.
Yes.
All right. Now the light.
Yes.
Get the telephone. Ask long distance for Crestview 9177 in Los Angeles.
Operator.
I'd like long distance, please. Crestview 9177 in Los Angeles.
Crestview 9177. One moment, please. Los Angeles. Hilton calling Crestview 9177. Crestview 9177. One moment, please. Hello?
All right, give it to me. Mary, look. Meet me at Al's as soon as you can get here. Something's wrong. No, I'm all right. I'll tell you later. Get here fast. Now, you got any pets you want to feed before we leave?
Where are we going?
Oh, a little trip. You ready to go? Don't answer that.
It might be the operator calling back. She'll wonder.
Okay. Answer it. But I'm right here.
Hello?
Mrs. Rogers, this is Officer Barnes. Say, oh, yes, operator.
Oh, yes, operator.
Is he still there? Say yes or no, operator.
Yes, operator.
Well, stall him a while. We're coming after him.
Thank you, operator. Dear Mr. Mayers, he'd understood me, and he told the police, and they were going to save me. Well, you just can't imagine. I felt exactly like the heroine in a motion picture. I simply had to prevent Mr. Bruce from leaving the house. Just a few minutes, the officer said. Just time enough for them to get here.
All right. Let's get going.
I wish I knew where we were going. Do I have to take anything with me? Will we be gone long?
Yeah. A long time.
Oh, then I need several changes of clothes. Let me think. My brown suit. Or would the grey be better? It's older, but...
Come on. You won't need anything.
Oh.
Huh?
The heater.
What?
I left the heater on in the other room. I'd better turn it off. I wouldn't like anything to catch on fire when we are gone.
Fire? You mean those heaters could set the house on fire?
No, not really. I meant that, well, I'd rather not pay a gas bill that's been run up against me because I neglected to turn the heater off.
All right, but make it fast. Well? Come on, what's the trouble?
Oh, this thing always sticks. I never can fix it. I remember it did it last fall. I was just starting off to meet my niece, Mary. And...
Here, let me do it. There.
Thank you. Now I feel better about it. Sure there must be something I've forgotten. Now let me think.
Come on. Now you ready?
Yes. I'm ready. It was quiet on my street, peaceful and dark. All the neighbors' lights were out, except for the Gaineses across the way. One light was on upstairs in the back of their house. It threw a diffused pattern diagonally across the pavement. And I thought for a minute that I saw a figure move suddenly towards us. Mr. Bruce motioned to me to go ahead, and I walked slowly down the path towards the car. I could feel Mr. Bruce a few steps behind me. Suddenly, it happened.
Hold him high, Bruce. What? Get down, Mrs. Rogers. What? Oh, there you are.
Mrs. Rogers, you all right?
Yes, I'm all right. Thank you. I'm all right. And there it is, Mary, the explanation I promised you. I felt as your aunt that I should tell you how you happened to be in the penitentiary. When Mr. Al in the roadhouse first mentioned your name, I was suspicious. But not until Mr. Bruce made the phone call to you did I begin to piece the story together. You had suggested the advertisement. Your husband answered it and employed me. If only you'd told me, my dear, that you'd gotten married when you were in Los Angeles. After all, I'm your only living relative, and I could have come to your wedding. Then this whole thing wouldn't have happened, would it, dear? Because I would have known Mr. Bruce all the time. Let me know after the trial what your new address is to be, and I'll continue writing. As always, Aunt Emily.
Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Before we hear again from Dame May Whitty, the star of My Dear Niece, tonight's suspense play, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Here's a hospitality tip on how to flatter your guests when entertaining. So easy, so smart, and so economical, too. Famed hostess Elsa Maxwell offers this suggestion from her own great entertaining experience. I find, says Miss Maxwell, that keeping a selection of Roma wine on hand enables me to please all my guests all the time. Yes, there's a Roma California wine to delight everyone, and you flatter your guests when you give them a choice. To add warmth to your welcome, serve red Roma port. Perfect at the end of a meal, too. Many prefer glorious golden amber Roma sherry. Others, the rich, distinctive fragrance and taste of golden Roma muscatel, or the flame-bright radiance of Roma Tokay. And you can afford all these Roma wines easily, for Roma is now at the lowest prices in years. No other wine offers you so much for so little. Get Roma wine tomorrow. Insist on Roma. R-O-M-A. Roma wine. Discover for yourself why more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine.
Mrs. May Whitty, as always, it's been a great pleasure to me to appear on Suspense. And I want to thank Mr. Spear for his usual splendid help, and Mr. Wally Mayer as Mr. Bruce for his excellent support, and all the other members of the cast who've all been so helpful. About next Thursday's Suspense, it seems that a gentleman of questionable reputation, a racetrack swindler who is, I believe the phrase is, hot, answers an advertisement which apparently offers him free transportation from New York to California. How this leads to the committing of one murder and the uncovering of another should give that excellent actor, George Coloris, something to get his teeth into. I'll be listening, as I'm sure you will be, next Thursday. And don't forget the March of Dimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dame May Whitty. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Mr. George Coloris as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System. KQW.
Suspense. With George Coloris as star of The Long Shot, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed by William Spear.
The one thing that puzzles me, Raymond, is how in the world a man of your intelligence could expect to get away with it.
Oh, you haven't heard the whole story. Yeah? Well, come on, let's have it. You got your book, Miss Andrews?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Raymond, okay. Start from the beginning.
You know, of course, that anything you say...
Oh, what difference does it make if you found the body? Nothing I can say now is going to matter one way or another.
Well?
Yes, I admit it was a long shot. But if you followed the horses as long as I have, you know that once in a while a long shot pays off. When it does, it pays plenty. Just like this one would have if it hadn't been for a smart Nevada cop.
Smart Nevada cop? Oh, I don't understand.
Let him talk.
Okay.
Go on, Raymond.
Thanks. Seems a year. But I guess it's only 10 days since I was sitting in the Astor lobby in New York. I'd had a terrible run of luck at the tracks. Started out the season with $2,000 and ended up with 28 cents. I was desperate. Hey, give me one.
There you are, mister. Thank you. Paper, get your...
I don't know why, but I found myself absent-mindedly looking through the classified section. All of a sudden, a small black square in the help wanted column seemed to come up and hit me right in the eye. Englishman will pay $150 in expenses to fellow countryman, preferably Londoner, in return for services as driver and traveling companion on automobile trip to San Francisco. There was a phone number and an address on 76th Street.
Come in. Oh, excuse me a moment, old chap. I'm on the phone. Hello? You say you're from Devonshire. Yes, I understand. Tell me, have you spent much time in London? Oh. Well, frankly, I'd much prefer a Londoner. Towns are sort of fiendish with me, you understand. Yes, I'd probably bore you to death. However, if nothing else turns up, I'll call you. Righto. Oh, step inside, please.
Thank you.
You've come about the advertisement, I presume?
Yes.
Oh, have a chair.
Thanks. You know, I couldn't help overhearing your conversation.
Yes. Been plagued all day, not a prospect in the lot. Now, what about you?
Well, my name's Kelly Raymond, born in London, in Vigo Lane, just off St. James's Square, August 18th, 1902. I know the town like the inside of my hat.
Really? You're not making this up.
Oh, no, of course not.
How long did you live there?
30 years.
Vigo Lane, I'm not sure I know it.
Oh, I suppose Vigo Street is the proper name. It turns right off Sackville and runs a few squares before it crosses Regent Street.
Oh, yes. Of course, I place it now. Well, Raymond, you seem to be a bit of all right. Tell me, why would you like to drive with me to San Francisco?
Are you at all interested in horse racing, Mr...
Sorry, old boy, my name is Hendricks. Walker Hendricks. No, I can't say that I am particularly. Been to Epsom Downs on a few occasions.
I see. Well, I've become rather fond of it. I might even say financially dependent on it in recent years, and with Bay Meadows opening shortly...
Bay Meadows, old chap?
That's a track near San Francisco.
Oh, yes, I see. Perhaps you wondered about my advertisement.
Well, it was a bit unusual.
Yes. Well, fact is, I'm extremely depressed with Americans, frankly. Never would have come here if it hadn't been for urgent business in San Francisco. Naturally, I couldn't bear the prospect of making the trip alone. I hope to find a fellow Britisher in the same predicament. Oh, excuse me a moment, old chap.
Yes.
Hello. Oh, yes. Well, I'm frightfully sorry, but I've just engaged a man.
I didn't tell him why I had to leave town, of course. But there was the small matter of a few bad checks and a cell waiting for me in the city jail if I ran into the wrong people. And thank heaven, with all his eccentricity, he knew when to stop asking questions. Yes, I was sitting pretty. The only thing I was afraid of was death from sheer boredom, because from the moment we started out, all he could talk about was London.
Have you spent much time in Soho, Raymond?
Well, I never lived there, that's what you mean.
Oh, no, I mean the restaurants and so on. Have you visited them?
Oh, well, let me see. There's the Moroccan. Oh, no, what was it? The Algerian Cafe in Dean Street.
Oh, quite right, the Algerian in Dean Street, yes.
Isn't that the place where they sell the wonderful coffee in the little brown packages? Yes, I'm sure. There's a big Frenchwoman there that we used to call Madame.
Oh, quite. I recall her now.
You remember the sign on the wall behind the counter?
Let me see.
It's something about anyone caught gambling or playing for money will be kicked into the gutter and not picked up again.
Oh, yes. Dashed amusing, wasn't it? As a matter of fact, I remember her clearly now. Yes, I saw her there only a short time ago.
Oh, it seems to me she died, didn't she?
Was that a fact?
Yes. Oh, you probably met her daughter.
Oh. Slow down a bit, will you? There's a sign. Cleveland, 12 miles.
Oh, well, we'll spend the night there, I think.
Oh, good idea. Let's see. Oh, yes, we were talking about Soho.
Yes, we were talking about Soho, and we continued to talk about it the rest of the way to Cleveland and most of the night in the hotel room. I began to think the man doubted my authenticity and was trying to trip me up. On the way to Chicago the next day, we covered Whitechapel, Fleet Street, Bloomsbury, and Mayfair. He still hadn't struck me, but I was beginning to feel like a well-thumbed Baedeker's guide by the time we reached Chicago. We just finished settling down in our hotel room.
You've seen that remarkable man in Covent Garden, Raymond?
Yes, a lot of remarkable men in Covent Garden.
Of course, but I mean the one who does that wonderful balancing act.
Oh, yes. Jim the porter. Balances 20 vegetable baskets on his head in the middle of traffic at high noon.
It's quite a sight, that.
Mr. Hendricks, I wonder if I might have a small advance on my salary.
Oh, I suppose so, yes.
It's still rather early, and I thought I might look over the Windy City.
Of course, Raymond. Oh, here, let me open my valise. Oh, gosh, this infernal lock is always acting up. Oh, there we are. 20 be enough?
Oh, fine, thanks.
Say, I believe I'll join you. Stretch the legs a bit, eh?
I could see that he was good for a couple more hours of London. But there was no getting out of it. Around the corner from the hotel was a place where I was reasonably sure of running into some of the racing crowd I'd met during the Arlington season. I lost no time getting there. We had a club sandwich, and at Mr. Hendricks' request, I was expounding scholastically on the difference between Chicago and London bacon when...
Kelly!
Tommy!
Hey, good to see you, Kelly.
I thought you were in Miami.
Leaving in a couple of days. How about coming along?
Oh, well, I'm on my way to San Francisco. This is Mr. Hendricks, Tommy DeWitt.
How are
you?
you? Do? Hey, you can't walk out on me like this, Kelly. I got a deal for you.
No.
Yeah.
Sure. You'll excuse us, Mr. Hendricks.
Who? Oh, rather, of course. Yes, let's go right.
Hey, what was the name of that car? I'll get right to the point. We bought us some jockeys.
Huh?
It's coming up next week at Hialeah. 500 will get you 10 grand on a parlay, but it's got to be 500.
Now, look, you're sure of this?
I never failed you yet, have I?
No, I've got to drive that stiff to San Francisco.
Well, what if you just walked out?
Well, I suppose I could. Yes, but the 500.
Has he got any money?
Wait a minute. That valise.
Huh?
Tommy, you sure this can't lose?
I'm positive.
Now, listen. All you have to do is watch that booth where Hendricks is and phone me at the hotel if he leaves. I'll call you in about 5 minutes and tell you where to meet me. I'd remembered about that wallet full of bills in Hendricks' valise back at the hotel. It was easy to slip out the back of the place, leaving Tommy watching him from the small window in the door to the back room. In 2 minutes, I was back in our room at the hotel. There it was, just like we'd left it, and to make things even easier, he'd forgotten to lock it. There was $680 in $20 bills in the wallet, and a sheaf of legal-looking documents in the portfolio next to it. Glanced at them idly as I pocketed the money. On top was a letter to Hendricks from a law firm in San Francisco, and although this was no place to be caught reading other people's mail, I began reading it. It was dated 2 months ago, October the 18th, 1934, addressed to Hendricks in Bedford Park, London. Wish to thank you for the patience and cooperation you have shown in the matter of your uncle's estate. Realize our position, of course. Since you are completely unknown personally to either relatives or legal counsel in the United States, it has been necessary to establish proof of your right to the estate entirely by documentary evidence. Happy to state that such proof is now thoroughly established. Ask that you present yourself with documents requested in our previous letter at our San Francisco offices, and trust that final disposition of the estate will be accomplished without further difficulty. Signed, Martin Kelson, attorney at law. I put the papers back in the valise, grabbed my luggage, and started to leave. But I didn't leave. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. And all of a sudden, my mind started going a mile a minute. Birth certificate. Affidavits from friends. Notarized statement from the Department of Records. Sheaf of letters. Evaluation of estate. Oh, my heart began to pound. Yes, this was a long shot. I knew it as I stood there looking down at those papers, checking them carefully. But it paid off. $100,000. Everything. Every affidavit and statement. Was a guarantee that their bearer was Walker Hendricks. And to tie it up tighter, one of the letters said pictures wouldn't be necessary. Just a passport. Yes, it was a long shot, but did you ever see odds like that, boys? Maybe you're right, boys. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I lost my reason there in the hotel room with $100,000 under my nose, trying to think a million things through at the same time, trying to calm down and see it clearly when I knew Hendricks was liable to walk in any minute. Anyway, I put the papers and the $680 back in the valise and put the copy of McValty's Your London and Mine on top. Then I called Tommy DeWitt at the Horse's Neck, told him the Hialeah deal was off, that there wasn't any money in the room. We left Chicago the next morning right on schedule.
Omaha, 6 miles. Expect we'd better stay there tonight, eh? Oh, you were saying you know the George Inn, Raymond?
Yes, you know, it's not in London proper. It's in Southwark, on the other side of the river.
Oh, yes, I believe you're right at that. What would you give for some of their jugged hair or their bubbling squeak? That's a rare old inn, the George.
I couldn't see a leak anywhere. All I had to do was pick the right time and place. He looked 45, but according to the birth certificate, he was only a year older than I, and you can't tell how old a man looks by the way he writes a letter. Yes, I thought of the handwriting, too. Made traces of the signatures on the letters and practiced on them every minute I was alone.
The Cock in Fleet Street. Ever been there, Raymond? Ever been to the Cock?
What? The Cock? Yes. Oh, yes, Fleet Street. I used to go there with a friend of mine, a reporter on the Times. It seems there was a waitress there that he was quite fond of, much to the dismay of his parents.
Ah, here we are, right on schedule. Salt Lake City, 3 miles. Jove, I'll be glad for a wash. That plain country's appalling.
Nice to have some trees for a change.
Not a bad spot at that. Matter of fact, I have an aunt here, you know.
Huh? An aunt?
Yes.
Why, how long since you've seen her?
Oh, I've never seen her. Don't intend to. She's a sister of my mother's, a Marguerite Stoddard. Thoroughly Americanized, I understand, and probably a crashing bore.
But really, old man, aren't you going to look up your dear old aunt now that you're right here in Salt Lake?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
I managed to get away from Hendricks right after dinner and told him I had a friend to look up. Yes, here was a way of telling about that payoff ahead of time. A laboratory test right here in Salt Lake City with nothing to lose if it didn't work out.
How do you do?
How do you do? Are you Mrs. Margaret Stoddard?
Yes.
I'm Walker Hendricks.
Oh, I can't believe it.
May I come in?
Yes, of course. I'm a little... you must excuse me.
I understand, Aunt Margaret. You know, I was so hoping it would be you. I found your address in the phone book, you know.
Please make yourself comfortable. I'll fix some tea.
Oh, no, I just finished dinner.
Please let me. I'll only be a minute, and somehow I can talk much better over a cup of tea.
Very well. I give in.
You're a pleasant surprise, Walker.
Thanks.
I'd expected you'd be a little more like...
Like what?
Oh, perhaps I'd better not mention it.
Oh, please do. You know, I think it's time we talk these things over.
You'll never know how much your Uncle Gerald regretted what he did.
Oh, you mean the will?
Oh, of course not. Long before that. Oh. Cecily never told you, I suppose.
No. Oh, no. She never told me.
Your mother was so hurt, it's no wonder. If they could only have understood each other better. But she and your Uncle Gerald were as 2 peas in a pod, Walker. Neither would give in an inch.
You know, Aunt, she never mentioned her family.
No, I suppose she wouldn't. After all, she loved your father, and Gerald hated him.
Mm-hmm. And so she left.
Yes. Of course, you naturally don't know all these things.
No, naturally.
I know Gerald would be the last to admit it, but I'm sure the will was his stubborn way of giving in to her.
Well, perhaps.
I'm sure of it. And since I've met you, Walker, I'm happier than ever it worked out this way. And now that there's nothing any of us can do for your poor mother and father. Oh, but I was going to fix tea, wasn't I? You just make yourself comfortable. I'll be right back.
If there ever was any doubt in my mind, it disappeared then and there. I even tried to catch myself up, and she never suspected a thing. They knew absolutely nothing of Cecily Hendricks from the time she left home until Gerald died, leaving her the $100,000. At that point, they made a pretty thorough search, found both she and her husband had died in England, and their son, Walker, was the only heir. I could have told her I was born in the Tower of London, and she would have believed me. Yeah, that was it. Yes. And now I even had an identity witness to back me up. It's 521 miles from Salt Lake to Reno, but I convinced Hendricks we could make it before stopping. I had a special reason. We had to hit the desolate section of Middle Nevada about midnight. As usual, from the time I stepped on the starter that morning, he was off on another tour of London.
You know, for all the years I've lived in London, I've never visited Billingsgate.
Oh, you must have passed it. It's right next to the bridge.
Oh, you've been there?
You know, there's hardly a spot in London where I haven't been. If you like fish, you'd be interested. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend it.
Oh, really? Oh, fascinating district around there, though.
When you get right down to it, killing a man's a pretty tough job.
Oh, yes.
Even when it's as perfect as this was going to be. So for once, I was so thankful for London. It gave us something to talk about, and there was so much on my mind that I might have given myself away in silence. So I prattled on like a phonograph. Yes. I used to go down there as a boy to watch the Dutch eel-boats put in and out of the harbor.
I never heard of a Dutch eel-boat.
Well, I expect most Londoners haven't. You know, amazing thing about that town, it seems that the greenest tourist knows more about it than the Londoners themselves.
I'd say you've done rather well, boy.
Well, you know, I've been on my own since I was 14. Now, take yourself, for example. 10 to 1, you've never been in Petticoat Lane. Perfectly marvelous place. Regular Oriental bazaar, right in the heart of the city. Is that a fact? Japs, Chinese, Malayans, everybody shouting at once and selling something different.
Oh. That's rather near Hangman's Dock, isn't it?
Yes. Catch that sign, will you?
Oh, very well. Slow down a bit. Wendover, Oasis, Wells. Oh, yes, Elko, 3 miles. By the way, Raymond, don't you think it might be wiser to spend the night here?
I thought we decided...
Well, yes, I know, but I've been thinking it's rather a long go to Reno.
Well, you can doze in the car, you know.
But why? We've got lots of time.
Look, here's what we'll do. Make Reno tonight and take a little extra jaunt around Lake Tahoe tomorrow.
Oh.
And we won't lose a bit of time, and I'll promise you that it'll take your breath away. How's that?
Well...
Now, we'll have a quick bite in Elko and move right on. It's only a few hours.
Oh, very well. Although, frankly, Raymond, I'm enjoying this reminiscing so much, I hate to cut the trip short.
Oh, good. Well, that's decided then, eh? We left about 8. At midnight, we were somewhere between Winnemucca and Reno, passing through some barren hills. I knew the time had come. My hands began to shake so much that I had to grab the wheel with both of them. I felt beneath the cushion for the wrench. It was still there. Finally, I held my breath and pulled over on the shoulder.
Who? Oh, I say. Oh, what were we stopping for?
Look, over there against that cliff.
Where? Oh!
All over. He never knew what hit him. I turned out the lights of the car and pulled the body out on the right-hand side. We hadn't passed a car for hours, so I wasn't worried much about being seen. He was heavy, pretty heavy. But I managed to carry him over my shoulder as I walked off into the brush. There was a small cave on one side of the ravine. I shoved the body in, rolled a large rock over the opening. Started a small landslide which completely covered the hole. Nobody could possibly find it. Clouds came back across the moon again, and I got a bit off in my direction because I ended up on the highway at the top of a rise some distance ahead of the car. I just about reached the car when I saw something that made my stomach feel as if it was full of ice water. For there, behind my car, was another one with a seal on the door. The seal of the Nevada State Police. There was nobody in the car. The officer must have been wandering around looking for the driver of my car. I lifted the hood of the engine and knocked the battery cable off one of the terminals. And then I waited. For a year, there in the silence. And then I almost cried out in relief. The officer appeared from the other side of the highway.
Hey there! What's the trouble?
I don't know, officer. He just went dead on me. Having a look up the road when you arrived.
Yeah, we usually check on stalled cars on this stretch. You say she Went dead on you?
Yes, the lights went out. The motor just died.
The lights went out, huh? You, been under the hood?
I wouldn't do much good, I'm afraid. I'm pretty green at that sort of thing.
Now, let's have a look.
Fine.
Yeah. All right. Get the flashlight on. Oh, your battery cable's jarred loose, brother. Got a wrench?
Yes. Yeah.
Right handy, huh? All right. There you are. Say, try her now.
You know, that looked pretty simple.
Yeah, it was.
Thanks ever so much.
That's okay. Let's see, your name's Hendricks, huh?
Right.
Check the registration. You're a long way from home, brother.
That's right, yes. Well, thanks a lot.
You're welcome, brother. Good night.
I was sure he knew nothing. Too sure, I guess. I had the passport faked here in San Francisco, complete with picture and a perfect imitation of an English visa. I was all set. And yet when the time came, I began to waver again. I wasn't sure about that cop. What if he sent someone back the next day to look around? Battery cables just don't jar loose by themselves. For 3 days, I sat in my hotel room here, thinking. I bought Nevada papers from an out-of-town newspaper stand on Market Street. No mention of the murder. Nothing. Yeah, that's why you were smart. You'd never have got me if anything had leaked out of the papers about finding that body. Well, anyway, when I couldn't stand it any longer, I flipped a coin. Heads, I'd do it. Tails, I wouldn't. I came up heads. Well, you know the rest. Actually, I denied it until you sprang it on me that the body had been found, and then I knew it was no use. Well, why don't you say something? Still think I couldn't carry it off, Kelson? Well, don't just sit there with a blank look on your faces. Say something.
Well, Raymond, we were holding you for the murder of Walker Hendricks, but it appears we were wrong.
What? What's the matter with all of you?
Oh, it was a long shot, Raymond, but it was a pretty good bet. Maybe that's why both of you gambled on it.
What do you mean, both of you?
You and whoever you bumped off in Nevada.
With whoever I... Hendricks is dead. I know he's dead.
Oh, Hendricks was murdered, all right, but you didn't do it.
What?
You see, he beat you to it, Raymond.
Who beat... Who? What?
Your traveling companion. He wasn't. Hendricks. He wasn't even an Englishman. That's why he was pumping you so much about London. He was, what do actors call it? Getting up in his part.
What are you talking about? I thought you found Hendricks' body in Nevada.
Oh, brother. Hendricks never was in Nevada. Poor guy never left New York. The New York police turned up the real Hendricks in the East River the day after you left town, chauffeuring for the guy who killed him.
This is the Armed Forces Radio Service.
Suspense. Tonight, it's George Murphy and Miss Nancy Coleman as stars of Too Little to Live On, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed by William Spear.
I don't know whether we ever thought about it before this morning or not. Might have crossed our minds sometime, one or the other of us. I don't know. But we never talked about it. Never. Never before this morning. Then this morning, everything just seemed to come to a head. Every little thing that had happened all those months and years just seemed to pile up at once. It just seemed as though this morning was the last straw.
Hi, honey.
Hello, darling. And breakfast is there keeping warm on the back of the stove. I'd get it for you, but I'm already late with his.
Oh, that's all right.
You better hurry, though.
Oh, I'm not going to the office today.
You're not?
No, he wants me to stick around. Don't you remember his lawyer is dropping in sometime today, only he doesn't know when? At least that's his story.
Well, maybe he really doesn't know.
Oh, he knows all right. Not that it matters much. I don't have any appointments today anyway. People around here wouldn't have their teeth fixed if you paid them to.
They can't help it if they're poor, Dave.
Well, I didn't say they could. I just said that they can't afford to go to the dentist. And it happens that I'm the dentist they can't afford to go to.
Oh, darling, there ought to be some way we can move to another neighborhood so at least you can start building a decent practice.
Sure. How? With what?
I know.
With Uncle Ed's money. When we get it. At least that's what we've been telling ourselves for the past 3 years.
Well, couldn't we talk to him? Couldn't we make him see that...
Oh, you know how much chance there is of that. He likes to see us having it tough. He likes to have us depending on that money. That's all he lives for. He'll probably live to be 100.
Oh, we've just got to be patient, Dave. Oh, there he is. He's up. I've got to hurry.
You'd think at least he'd spend enough dough to have some decent tires put on that wheelchair of his, so it wouldn't bump around over our heads like a 10-ton truck day and night.
Well, I suppose we ought to be thankful he doesn't spend his money in a way.
Have you seen him this morning?
Uh-huh.
How's he feeling?
About the same, I guess. He made me bring his lemon juice and water down and heat it up again. Said it wasn't hot enough. Willie almost bit me again.
Oh, that mutt.
Oh, doggy is getting old. I suppose he can't help it. Any more than Uncle Ed.
They could both help it. He wants it that way. He gets a kick out of it. Because now it's gotten so we even have to kowtow to a snarling little mutt. And he sits there and laughs at us.
Oh, well, we've just got to be patient, Dave.
Well, one thing. When we get that $30,000, we sure will have earned it.
Dave.
Yeah?
What about the lawyer?
Well, what about it?
Well, I mean, what do you suppose it means?
Well, what should it mean? He's always getting the old fool over every 3 or 4 months and going into some kind of a huddle.
Why should he want you here?
Well, how should I know? Maybe he needs both of us as witnesses or something.
You know, he's been talking an awful lot about that orphanage over in Brooklyn.
Well, sure. Last winter, all he could talk about was some filing home for stray dogs down in Pennsylvania. Oh, he's just cracking the whip, that's all, to see us jump.
Oh, David, if he was to change his will now after all we've been through it...
Oh, don't worry. He won't.
Oh, there he goes. He's coming for his breakfast. Coming right up, Uncle Ed. Let's see. Oatmeal, toast. Oh, I hope he'll have his eggs right. Get the coffee off the back of the stove, darling, when I get a cup.
Okay.
Oh,
It's all right. It's all right, honey. It was only a cup.
Oh, I know it's only that, but sometimes he makes me so nervous I feel as though I was going crazy.
Take it easy. Take it easy, honey. Here, let me get the tray.
No, I'm all right now. Let's see. Well, there's a pan of milk warming on the stove. Fill this bowl about half full and break up a handful of those little dog biscuits in it.
Okay.
Let's see. Sugar, salt, pepper, cream. All right, come on. Open the door for me, will you, darling?
Here, I'll carry the tray.
Oh, no, he likes to have me bring it.
Well, what's the difference?
Oh, don't ask me, Dave. Oh, the paper. Oh, you got it.
Well, look, I haven't read the paper yet myself.
Shh, you can read it later. Come on. Here's your breakfast, Uncle Ed.
All right.
I'm sorry I was a little late, but...
Set it down. I heard what you said about the paper, David. It's getting so you can begrudge a little thing like that to a helpless invalid. I don't begrudge it, Uncle Ed. So important for you to read the paper, why don't you subscribe for 2 of them? Well, I'm afraid the budget in this family won't stand for little luxuries like that. Oh. When I was your age, I had my first $1,000 in the bank. Well, things were a little different in those days, Uncle Ed. I was a little different. That's what the difference was. Set Willie's breakfast down for him, Myra. No, not there. Over by his bed where he can get at it.
Yes, Uncle Ed. I'm afraid Willie doesn't like me anymore.
Here, honey. I'll give it to him. Hey, stop that. Hey, don't you dare strike that dog, David. I wasn't going to hit him. I just want him to let go of my sleeve. Myra, take him out once in a while. He wouldn't feel that way.
I take him out any time you ask me to, Uncle Ed.
I forget sometimes. You ought to do it without my asking. Well, you can go now. I know you don't want to stay any longer than you have to.
Oh,
hey,
Uncle
Myra,
Ed.
Hand me my glasses. They're on the bureau.
Glass? Oh, yes, Uncle Ed. Here. Oh!
Myra, you clumsy fool.
Oh, Uncle Ed, I'm so sorry. Maybe I can mend them.
Of course you can't mend them. They're broken, you idiot.
Don't talk to her like that.
What was that?
I said don't talk to her like that.
Dave, please, please.
Oh, I see. Now you're trying to bully me. A helpless old man in a wheelchair. Well, I won't stand
Oh,
for
Uncle Ed, he didn't mean anything.
I made my bargain with you, David, and I intend to keep it as long as you do. I've never complained about the care you've given me, although heaven knows it's been a little enough. But don't think for a minute I'll stand for anything like this.
Well, I'm sorry, Uncle Ed.
I'm afraid that's scarcely enough.
Well, it won't happen again. Look, I'll get the glasses fixed. I know a guy can do it right away.
This'll probably take a week. In the meantime, I'll be as blind as a bat. And don't expect me to pay for it.
Well, don't worry. I'll pay for it. You'll have him back tonight.
Well, this reminds me, David, be sure that you're here when my lawyer comes today.
I'll be here. I stayed home from the office on purpose.
Well, that's all for now. Oh, I suppose neither of you have taken the trouble lately to find out which of my prescriptions need refilling.
Oh, yes. I was thinking of that yesterday.
Oh, were you? Well, let's do it now, anyway. Bismuth's entirely gone, and you know how I depend on that. You better get another bottle of iron tonic. The drops, well, that's all right for now. And the thiocyanate, you better get that refilled, too, while you're at it. Take the bottle of the bismuth, too.
I'll go right away, Uncle Ed.
Do, and come right back. You know I must have my bismuth not later than 20 minutes after you need.
Yes, I know. Come on, Myra. Oh, I hate myself, Myra. Take it easy. Take it easy. It's all right. Now it's all right.
Oh, Dave, I've tried. I can't go on like this.
Take it easy, darling. Take it easy. It won't be much longer.
But how long? How long?
I know.
We've been saying that for 3 years. We're like prisoners. We can't go out of the house together because somebody has to be with him. We can't have friends in because they disturb him. Oh, Dave. Dave, we can't even have a baby.
I could kill him. Sometimes I could kill him.
Darling, I know it's just as bad for you as it is for me. It's just that, well, I'm here alone with him all day. I'm sorry. I should have let myself go that way.
I hate myself, Myra. If I'd known it was going to be like this...
It's not your fault, darling. I knew what we were doing.
I'm not even a man anymore, Myra. I let him sit there and say things to my wife that a man wouldn't take from anybody on earth. But I take it. I take it and smile.
Dave, it's not your fault.
It is my fault, because if I was any kind of a man, I'd do something about it.
But there's nothing to do, don't you see? I should never have acted like this. We've just got to be patient and wait, that's all.
Wait. Maybe another 3 years. Maybe 10 more years.
Oh.
What's the use of kidding ourselves? How do we know how long it's going to take him to die? Sometimes I don't even think he's sick. Sometimes I think he's just putting it on to make us wait on him.
But the doctor said...
Oh, he could fool a doctor. It's been done. And even when he does die, how can we ever be sure?
Oh, Dave, you don't think...
I think he's just that mean. He'd snatch the money away at the last minute and die laughing at us.
And the lawyer's coming today.
Sure, he could do it today. He could do it any time. And we'd never know. Not until he told us.
Oh, he wouldn't. He couldn't.
Why not? He might just as well do it anyhow. He'll hold it over us until the last minute, like he did just now. Until we probably will die of heart failure before he does.
But you said just a few minutes ago...
I know. I've been kidding myself for 3 years, but not anymore.
Oh, Dave, what are we going to do? What can we do?
I don't know, Myra. I don't know.
If only something could happen.
Nothing's going to happen, Myra. Unless we make it happen.
Dave, we couldn't.
We can't go on like this either.
We could tell him to go.
And throw away 3 years of our lives? The 3 years that we've waited? We've earned that money already, Myra. $10,000 a year isn't much for what we've done.
Oh, Dave, I don't care about the money.
Well, I do. If it was anyone else, I'd feel different. I don't have any more feeling about him than I do that dog up there.
Dave, you don't really mean it.
I don't know what I mean, Myra. Listen, I've got to go over to the drugstore and get his medicine.
Oh, hurry back.
I'll only be a minute, just across the street.
I'll watch out for the lawyer.
Yeah, and stall him off if he comes.
Hurry.
Hello, Mr. Herman.
Well, Dr. O'Connor, you come for your regular batch of medicines, I suppose.
That's right.
How is he, Dr. O'Connor? Better, I hope?
Well, I'm afraid he's been having a little pain lately.
Oh, that's too bad. He's such a courageous old man, so cheerful. Every time I go by, he's sitting up there by his window. He waves. Always he sends his little remembrance at Christmas. Yes, your uncle's a real gentleman.
Yes, that's right.
Well, what'll it be today?
The iron tonic and the bismuth, 100 tablets. And, yes, would you refill the thiocyanate prescription? Here, I brought the bottles.
All right, I'll get it for you right away. You got a prescription for the thiocyanate, and you want...
No, but I'll sign it.
Oh, sure, that's right. You can sign it. You know how it is, Doctor. We got to be careful of these things.
You'd better give me the big tablets this time.
Sure thing. You reach just over the counter, you'll find a prescription blank.
Oh.
Just below there. You got it?
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, there we are.
Don't bother to wrap it.
All right. That's $4.87.
Here, I've got it even. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Dr. O'Connor.
Well, you taking the day off, Doctor?
Yes, that's right.
Well,
Dave?
Yeah. The lawyer come?
No.
Come on in the kitchen. I got the medicine, Myra.
Oh?
Myra, do you know what these things are that he's been taking?
No, not exactly.
Well, this is bismuth. The stuff he takes after every meal. 3 or 4 of them. The stuff he's due to take right now.
Dave.
Now, wait a minute. These are thiocyanate. He only takes these once in a while for his heart. Just one of them. Less than one now because I got the bigger tablet this time.
Dave, what are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say, if he took 3 or 4 of these instead of his bismuth, by mistake, it would kill him.
Dave, no.
By mistake, I said.
Well, it couldn't be.
Yes, it could. Look at the tablets. Can you tell them apart?
Hardly.
If they were in the wrong bottle?
But afterwards, they'd know they were in the wrong bottle. They'd know that somebody must have...
No, he'd think it was all right from the shape. But afterwards, we'd put them back in the right bottle.
But then they'd know it couldn't be a mistake. They'd know he could read right on the bottle from the label.
No, they wouldn't. They'd know he couldn't read the label. They'd know he couldn't read anything.
His glasses?
That's right. His glasses and the oculist would have to swear to it.
Oh, Dave, are you sure you can't see?
He's as blind as a bat without him. That much I know is real.
Oh, Dave.
It's the only way, Myra. It's the chance of a lifetime. No tampering with anything, no changing labels so they could analyze the glue if they get suspicious. None of that.
I know, but...
And don't forget, his lawyer's coming today.
Couldn't we just tell him to go?
What about the money?
Oh, Dave, I can't think. Oh, the front door.
Must be Lawyer Eldridge. Yeah, it is. I can see him standing outside.
What'll we do?
Get rid of him.
Well, hurry before he rings again. He might hear it.
What shall I tell him?
Well, say that he's had a bad turn. We're calling the doctor. Then if he asks any questions any time, we could say it was... Oh.
Yeah. All right. Good morning, Mr. Eldridge.
How do you do, Dr. O'Connor?
Let's talk out here. I'm sorry you had to come way out here, but my uncle has had sort of a bad turn.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Nothing serious, I hope.
Well, we're calling the doctor. No, I don't think it's anything serious, Mr. Eldridge. I don't see how it could be.
Why, no.
But, he was wondering if you could come back some other day.
I see. Well, it's just a matter of his signature on a document.
I'm really afraid he isn't up to it, Mr. Eldridge.
I see. Well, perhaps I could phone him later in the day.
I
say I could phone him. There would be no objection to that, would there?
Oh, no. But if there's any message that I could give him later...
Yes. Well, you might say that I've made the changes that he requested. He'll know what I mean.
All right. I'll do that. And thank you, Mr. Eldridge.
Thank you, Doctor. And good day, sir.
Goodbye.
Has he gone?
Yeah.
Did he?
No. No, it was all right.
What is it, Dave? Did he say something?
He said that he'd made the changes, whatever they were, and that he'd understand. He said that all he wanted was his signature on some document.
His will?
He didn't say that.
Oh.
It's now or never, Myra.
Oh, Dave, let me just think for a minute.
Well, what's the use?
Yes, I suppose.
Well, what about it?
Yes. All right.
Okay. All right. Here are the 2 bottles. Come on.
Oh, Dave, no,
You've got to come.
Why?
Because you have.
All right.
You don't have to say anything.
All right.
Yes. Did I hear someone at the front door?
No, there hasn't been anyone here. Has there, Myra?
No.
Oh. Thought it might have been Mr. Eldridge.
I got your medicine.
You took long enough about it.
I'll put it over here by the bed where you can get it.
What do you want, Myra?
Well, I just came to get your tray, Uncle Ed.
Oh, you did?
Didn't Willie like his breakfast?
It was too hot, of course. I'm going to give it to him now.
Have you got water for your pills?
Yes. And what about my glasses?
They'll be ready this evening.
All right. Can you show Mr. Eldridge up here the minute he arrives?
Oh, yes, I will, Uncle Ed. Do you want me to take the tray?
No, I've got it. Oh, Dave, how could we?
What's the use of that? It's done now.
It's so horrible.
Is it?
Don't you realize that we're...
Murder? All right, it is. And I'm glad.
Dave, don't say that.
What's the difference what you call it? It's the only thing to do. It's even better for him this way.
David, I'm afraid...
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Listen.
Yeah. He'd wheel himself over to take his pills.
Dave. Will it take long?
At his age? And if his heart is anything like what the doctor says it is, no.
Is it?
Painful? No. Like a heart attack, that's all.
What was that?
He must have fallen.
Finney's?
Yeah, in a minute anyway.
We ought to go up.
No, wait a minute.
But the bottle...
There's plenty of time.
Shouldn't you wear gloves or something?
No, I thought of that. It would look funny if there weren't any fingerprints.
Oh, Dave, we ought to go up, even if... Well, it will look better.
All right. In case. Just in case.
We'll have to call the doctor.
We'll have to anyway. Either way.
Suppose...
Don't worry. It won't be like that.
The wheelchair's empty.
He's not here. Quick, look in the closet.
No. Under the bed. Oh, Dave, look. Willie.
He's dead. The dog is dead, Myra.
But how?
Here. Here's a note on the chair. Oh.
Dave, what is it?
It's from him. It says, "My dear, dear niece and nephew, the thing has at last occurred which I have always known would one day inevitably occur. Poor little Willie has given his life to save mine. It may interest you to know that from my window I saw Mr. Eldridge leaving the house. I also suspect that the incident of breaking my glasses was not quite an accident. And so, my dear children, I have gone to the police. The little bottles with their transposed contents are in my pocket as final and conclusive evidence of your murderous intent.
Oh.
You see, I have never been quite as helpless as I allowed you to believe, and have, in fact, conserved my strength for precisely such an emergency, a circumstance to which it now appears I owe my life. For your further information, Mr. Eldridge was not coming to change my will.
Oh.
And now my would-be heirs and assigns a fond farewell. I will see you in court. Your loving Uncle Ed. P.S. Did you hear my body fall? I thought you would like that. I did.
How could he have gotten out?
Down the front stairs while we were...
Oh. You said he couldn't read the label.
He didn't. He tried it on the dog.
What can they do?
Attempted murder. 20 years to life.
But would they believe
They'd
it?
believe what everybody else believes. A fine old gentleman.
Life.
There it is.
David,
Yes?
are there any more?
What?
Of the pills.
Oh, Myra.
There isn't anything else to do, is there, Dave?
No. No, I guess not.
Are there more? Enough?
Yes. Of the little ones in my pocket.
These?
Yes.
How many?
Half a dozen.
You said it didn't hurt.
No, darling. Not much.
Oh, Dave. I did so want to have children.
The front door.
Oh, they're here.
You'd better go down so they'll leave us alone. Give us time.
All right.
Goodbye, Myra.
No, wait.
Go on.
Goodbye. Yes, officer.
Good evening, Mrs. O'Connor. I'm sorry,
Yes,
but...
Clancy, I know.
Oh? I'm afraid you don't, ma'am. I got some bad news for you, Mrs. O'Connor. It's about your uncle.
Yes.
I don't know how he could have got out there, but... Well, he was just hit by a car.
Yes. Hit?
Yes, ma'am. He's dead.
Dead?
Yes.
Dead! David! 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 That's all. I tried, but they stopped me. David had died before I got there. That's all.
This is the Armed Forces Radio Service.